Hello everyone. Tonight we're going to travel through cold wind, broken empires, and a mind that isn't sure if it's real anymore. Imagine waking up in a tower so old it remembers Genghis Khan, the Cold War, and maybe even your childhood. You're not quite alive, but you're definitely not dead. You wear rust instead of rose, and your armor size every time you move. Night. You're that guy. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I'm doing here. And if you're listening from somewhere distant, type your location and local time in the comments. Let's see who else is out there in the shadows tonight. Now, turn off the lights. Maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise. And let's get down to business tonight. You wake alone in the Carpathians. The wind's got claws. It slips into the gaps in your armor and bites like a starving fox. You've been dragging your feet through frostbitten brush for hours now, if not days. You don't remember falling asleep, but you clearly remember waking up. Inside a half-collapsed tower, high above the cloud line, surrounded by a silence that should have felt peaceful but doesn't. The sky's too pale to be trusted. Something about the color and institutional blue, like forgotten paint on an old Soviet school wall, makes your stomach clench. Your fingers gloved in rotting leather close round the hilt of a sword that doesn't quite belong in this century. The blade is chipped, the steel blackened from fire or maybe time. You wear it anyway. You're not sure who you'd be without it. There's something ritualistic about the way you reattach the scabbard to your hip. You've done it before, thousands of times below you. The world stretches out like a graveyard stitched from ice and ruin. The valleys are misted in grey. Pine trees huddle like conspirators. The Cold War might be over, but no one told this forest. Here, it still lingers, breathes. You move, and the bones in your knees crack loud enough to make a nearby raven squawk and fly off. The sound echoes against the stones. You descend. There's a path, but barely. It's carved into the mountain like it was meant for wheels, but the wrong kind. Wagon wheels, maybe, or tanks. You spot tracks halfway down long faded treads from some armored vehicle that probably hasn't run since Gorbachev had better hair. And there it is again. That awful feeling like you've been forgotten on purpose. Because here's the thing. You weren't always alone. Once upon a war, you had comrades, not soldiers, knights, real ones, or at least. That's what you called yourselves, draped in Kevlar under capes, trained in martial rituals, speaking Latin code and swearing oaths to symbols you can no longer place. You weren't part of a country. You were part of an idea. And now you're the last. You reach the foot of the mountain by twilight. Your armor is less metal now. More memory scratches where bullets kissed you. Dents that look like they should have killed you. But you're still here, because you're stubborn. Wolkust. The village you find is almost too quaint, like a postcard someone forgot to send. Brick chimneys, tiny windows, and not a single digital screen in sight. You enter the square, and the locals don't even flinch. One woman eyes your sword, another spits in the snow. You approach a fruit cart, ask for bread in Hungarian, Polish, Romanian until one word lands. The vendor doesn't smile, but he nods, passes you a hill of something tough and dry. You reach for a currency only to realize you've got none. Just a Soviet pin, and a bullet with no gun. You offer the pin. He takes the bullet. That one's dead. He mutters, glancing at your armor. You don't answer. Night falls fast here, in the local tavern. There's only one working light bulb, and it flickers like it knows secrets. The walls are yellowed from decades of smoke. A radio crackles behind the bar, but it's not tuned to any station. Just static, familiar static. You sit. Your body makes the old bench groan. No one asks your name. That's fair. You're not even sure you remember it yourself. What you do remember vividly is the last mission, or the last order. At least, issued from some faceless general whose voice came through wires, asking you to hold the border. You held it for decades. No one ever said, "You can stand down now." And that's why you're here wearing rust, living like a rumor, marching through a Europe that moved on without you. You hear someone behind you say something about the wall falling. You look up. Berlin. You ask. The man nods. Years ago. He offers you a cigarette. You shake your head. They didn't call you. He asks. You just laugh. Dry. Like leaves crunching. Historians still debate whether elite paramilitary orders like yours, the Alexander Code. Some called it were real or just paranoid Cold War myth. There are no photos, no official records, just whispers and tales passed in dark bars like this one. You finish your red. It tastes like dust and duty. Outside, snow starts to fall again. You look up and ask the sky a question. But the sky as always doesn't answer. Instead, a raven lands on a nearby post and caws 3 times. You watch it. You follow it. Because let's face it, you've got nothing else to follow anymore. You've been dragging your boots through frostbitten mud for an hour when the bird finally disappears into the trees, the trail it led you on. Not a trail at all, just a suggestion in the snow, winding between half-buried fence posts and rusted signs that no longer mean anything. One says Zain Azark is honor. Another is so crowded all that's left is the ghost of a warning triangle. Radiation. Mine's, you shrug. You've survived worse. Allegedly. The forest closes round you like the pages of a forgotten book. The air here has weight. Like it remembers every whisper of espionage, every misplaced bomb, every secret deal signed in bunkers and back alleys. You breathe it in anyway. You can't help yourself. Your shoulder aches. Maybe it's from that time in Yugoslavia. Or was it Silesia? Hard to say. You try to recall when you last slept in a real bed. You get as far back as 83 before your memory fogs over like the inside of a helmet. You pass under skeletal birch trees, and there it is, the wall. Not the wall. Mind you, this one's made of moss-covered stone, hunched and broken in places, stretching like an old scar across the clearing. It's too old to be Soviet, too deliberate to be peasant work. You touch it, and feel the chill of something much older than the Cold War. This wasn't built to divide nations. This was built to keep something in. Your reflection swims in a patch of melting ice pooled at its base. For a second, your eyes meet your own, but not quite. That version of you wears clean armor, stands taller. There's still purpose in his gaze. You step back, keep moving, a few miles on. You find what you didn't know you were looking for. It's a checkpoint, or rather, what's left of one. Barbed wire tangled in pine, rusted watchtowers leaning at suspicious angles, and a gate bent in the middle like it bowed under pressure and never got back up. Above it, barely legible in flaking ceramic, the border you once swore to guard. Once. You and your unit would have stood here in silence, shoulder to shoulder, coats buttoned, rifles loaded but not raised. You didn't shoot unless the sky turned black. That was the oath. An oath you signed in blood, and something even more binding. Believe. Now. There's only one figure here. A scarecrow in a NATO parka, slumped in a chair with empty sockets painted on its burlap face. You let out a short breath. Someone's idea of a joke. Still, the scene is oddly reverent. The air still. You walk through the gate. There is no gunfire, no dogs, no sirens. Just you, the ghosts, and the Cold War that never quite ended for you. You descend into a trench that used to be manned by soldiers who called you Comrade Knight. Half in jest, half in awe. They didn't know where you came from. Exactly. But when things got hairy, you were always there, silent, efficient, cloaked like a medieval phantomon with a suppressed macro and a sword no one could trace. The trench ends in a small dugout. You recognize it immediately. You slept here once. Eat here. Watched through the scope of a Dragunov rifle while the wind howled and a million political lies passed as truths across every border. Inside, there's still a cracked teapot, a chessboard missing its knights. You run your hand across the wall and stop at a phrase scratched in Latin. Ultimus custos, nec tempori nec regno, the last guardian, bound by neither time nor nation. You smile, bitterly. You didn't write that, but someone who knew you did. You collapse into the corner. Let the cold find you again. Dreams take you first. In them. You are standing once more in a room full of young men with square jaws and trembling hands. You are not the oldest there, but you are the only one who speaks when the instructor asks, "What is your country?" You answered, "The line." And for a moment, everyone nodded. Then came the training. The kind they don't write down. Language drills in bunkers lit by a single red bulb. Sword technique in decommissioned castles under the polish night. Firearms mixed with philosophy. You remember the lecture titled Loyalty Without a Flag. It lasted for hours. You aced it. You waked to static. Not in your head this time. It's real. A radio. The trench's old field unit. Miraculously still clinging to life on a dying battery. It's whispering numbers. Not in code, just numbers. Repeated. Over and over. It stops. Then, night 7. Hold position. A pause. Then again. Night 7. Hold position. You don't know if it's real. You don't know if someone pressed play on an old tape deck just to mess with you. But that was your call sign. You were night 7. And until this moment, you thought no one remembered. Historians still debate whether old number stations ever held real commands or were just psychological operations. Decoys wrapped in static. But, you know, you lived them. Slept with that radio next to your cot like a child with a teddy bear. Night 7. Hold position. You stare into the night. Then you whisper, confirmed. And in that moment, for the first time in years, you don't feel quite so alone. Somewhere out there, someone remembered to call you. The next morning, if it is morning, because let's be honest, the sun's not exactly cooperating. You rise with snow in your beard and moss under your knees. Your body protests. Every joint stiff like rusted hinges. But your mind is sharper than it's been in years. Something about hearing your old call sign on that static blasted radio shook you awake. Like someone reached down through time and yanked the curtain open. You take stock. The trench is half flooded. Your gloves are stiff with ice. Your sword still at your side. Still humming in that quiet way it does when things are about to get complicated. You stand, slow but steady, the question clawing at your ribs. Who sent the transmission? Because let's get one thing straight. The world has moved on. NATO rotates troops through flashy bases now. The old listening posts, dust, the number stations, shut down officially. And yet, there it was, your name, your command. You climb out of the trench, boots crunching over shattered pine needles and memories. The forest has changed, or maybe just your eyes have. It looks less like a place and more like a dream now, a blurred photo where all the faces have been scratched out. You make your way east. There's no map, but you've got a muscle memory for ruin. Within hours, you hit your next sign, a weather-worn bunker nestled in the hillside, painted in flaking camouflage, like it's trying to hide from time. You approach, knock once on the steel hatch. No response. You try the handle. It creaks open. Inside. Darkness, stale air and damp concrete. You enter without hesitation. The layout's burned into your mind. 3 rooms, comms, storage, mess. You move like a ghost through each. Dust everywhere, old cans of food, a pile of uniforms folded with military precision. contacts cut off, and then, in the comms room you find it. A machine still warm. A tape reel slowly spinning down, whispering its last numbers in a slow loop. 4, 2, 7. Pause. 7. 4. Not your code. Not anymore. But close enough to sting. Pinned beside the machine. A photo, grainy. Black and white. You're in it. Standing next to 5 others. Faces blurred. Intentionally. But you recognize the posture. The gear. The patch on one shoulder, an iron lion swallowing a star. You touch the photo like it might flinch, but it doesn't. There's a date on the back. June 4th, 1990. A joke of a date. You remember that night. The final operation. You were ordered to guard the red path. A code term. Never explained. Just given. You followed. Like always, that night, 3 of your men didn't come back. One of them, your oldest friend. Code name, Bastion. Real name, you burned it from your brain like they trained you to. Safer that way. You sit down beside the comms machine. The tape sputters to a stop. A light blink screen, steady. You press the button. A voice, garbled, but human. 7. If you're hearing this, it means the failsafe held. The rest of us didn't make it. Protocol Iron Veil is active. Find the archive. Then silence. Stop the archive. Your breath catches. That wasn't just a myth back then. Rumors swirled of a Cold War database the size of a city block hidden in the Alps, or the Urals, or maybe beneath the Black Sea. Supposedly, it housed decades of secrets, false flags, mind control experiments, the kind of intel that could shatter empires if dropped at the right moment. The kind of place you were told didn't exist. Yet here it is, bleeding into your present like ink in water. You scan the walls. Find a map. Hand dash drawn. Sparse. A red line running through mountains you haven't walked in decades. Circles, a triangle. And at the bottom, scrolled in Cyrillic, the Iron Sarcophagus. You stare, because that was your old nickname for it. And now, someone else has written it, recently. You feel something shiver in your ribs, not fear. Not exactly, but the echo of something close. Historians still debate whether the Cold War was truly cold. Some argue it was just a slow-burning fire, paper cuts and whispers that killed just as surely as bombs. You've lived long enough to know the truth. It was cold, yes, but only because it froze everything it touched. Including you. You take the map. Leave the bunker. Outside, the air has shifted. Less hostile, still sharp, but watching. You trace your finger along the path drawn in red. It leads west. Through the forest. Across a buried minefield you remember clearing in '88, and then across what used to be the line. You begin walking. Snow swirls round you, soft and dreamlike. Your boots crunch into a rhythm you haven't heard in years. Marching tempo. It feels good. You don't think about what comes next. Not really. Just the archive. The secrets, the possibility that someone else might still be out there, still guarding, still believing, and maybe, just maybe, you're not the last night after all. You hike for 3 days without seeing another soul. Not that you expected a welcome party. This part of the world is where cell towers go to die, and roads pretend they never existed. The mountains rise in grey solemnity, their ridges wrapped in cloud. Like nature's version of classified documents heavily redacted, utterly silent. At night. The cold chews your fingers like an old dog testing if its bone still has marrow. You sleep in a hollow beneath to collapsed trees, curled into the shape of a question mark, which feels appropriate. Questions are all you have now. The path on the map leads you to an abandoned ski lift. Rusted towers, cables snapped like frayed nerve endings. You climb the service ladder anyway, just to look. From the top, you can see it partially buried beneath snow and brush. a concrete rectangle like a tombstone to progress. You descend and approach slowly. The door is hidden, naturally. A slab of steel behind false rocks and bent branches. You remember this tactic from the soft borders dot in places designed to disappear into landscape. Not just be locked, but someone's been here recently. The snow is disturbed, scratched. Not in a human way. Tracks too small for boots, too erratic for wildlife. Claw marks. No, something dragged, something carried. You grip your sword. The weapon hums a low-frequency memory of danger. Still. You press forward. The keypad on the door is smashed. You find the manual overrider pressure lever, well hidden beneath a panel of fake moss. It resists, then gives, with a hiss. The door opens, releasing the scent of dust, gun oil, and ozone. You step inside. The bunker's interior is intact, sterile and humming. Lights flicker on with a slight delay, like they were waiting for you. Your boots echo on the metal floor. Along the hallway, faded posters hang with slogans in 4 languages. Knowledge is power. Silence is armor. Another reads, "You do not exist. Therefore you are free." You roll your eyes. Old propaganda always sounded like a drunk philosopher lost in a riddle. The first room is a decontamination chamber long disused. The second is a vault, locked. But the third, it's a gallery. Photos, maps, artifacts in plexiglass cubes, a museum curated by paranoics. You walk past a Stasi surveillance kit, a CIA lipstick gun, a KGB knife disguised as a fountain pen. Your own reflection flickers in the glass, half spectre, half relic, and then you see it. A case labeled Night Protocol. Inside, your own sword's twin, identical down to the notches on the crossguard. You blink. Impossible. Only 7 were ever made, and you had the last. Also, they told you, a small tag beneath it reads, recovered from Operation Harroglass. Location, Murmansk. Date, May 1991. Agent, unknown. You try not to shake. Harroglass was your op. But you were in Prague that night, weren't you? You check the logbook beside the case, scrawled handwriting. Names, times. The last entry is chilling. Asset active. Reinstated under fallback command structure. Night 9. You freeze. There was no Night 9. That was the Ghost Protocol. A bluff. A code word. A way to scare enemy agents. The final night who answers to no one. It wasn't supposed to be real, and yet, a clatter. Somewhere deeper in the bunker. You draw your sword, the metal singing with cold precision. Night 7. A voice calls. You freeze. The voice isn't loud. It's like a whisper that found a microphone. Night 7. I didn't think you'd make it. You step toward the source, past more artifacts, past the room with the sealed vault again. Now its green light blinks. You open the final door. The chamber is circular, dome-shaped, a command center once. Now cracked and flickering with failing systems. At the center, a chair turned away from you, surrounded by monitors showing scrambled satellite images. Then it turns, and you see him, older, paler, worn to the bone, but alive. Night 9. Except you know that face. You've seen it in reflections, in frostbitten windows, in broken memories. It's yours, or something trying very hard to be. Historians still debate whether identity manipulation was ever successful during the Cold War. If doppelganger projects, brain transplants, even full-body simulations ever moved beyond theory. Most claim it was science fiction cloaked in classified budgets. But you're staring at something real, breathing. You shouldn't be here. It says. You circle the room. Keep your sword level. You are not me. You say. Night 9 tilts his head. I'm what was made when you broke protocol. When you walked away. I didn't walk. I was retired. Double quotes. He dash smiles. Double quotes. No. You were filed. like paper. And someone opened that file again. The lights pulse, the monitors flicker, showing a symbol you haven't seen in decades. An iron lion eating a burning flag. The archive. It wasn't just information storage. It was containment. Of what? You ask. But you already know. You're not here to find the archive. Night 9 says, you are the archive. The words land like snow on your shoulders, silent, suffocating, because deep inside, you've always wondered how much of what you remember is true, and how much was installed. Were you sent here, or are you just running your last loop? You grip your sword tighter. I'm not your mirror. You say, no. Night 9 says, you're my legacy. He draws his sword to blades, same weight, same hum. And for the first time in decades, you realize the Cold War never ended. It just went underground. You don't strike first, not out of hesitation, but respect. A strange kind of reverence for the enemy you were never trained to face, yourself, or the thing wearing your skin. Night 9 he circles you, blade drawn with the same precision, the same stance. You taught that stance to younger recruits in the silent forests of Estonia. Back when you still believed history moved in straight lines. It doesn't. It folds. And now here you are, staring into the creases. The chamber is silent except for your breathing and the low mechanical hum of ancient life support systems trying to keep a lie alive. You lunge not to kill, just to gauge. His parry is perfect. Not good, not fast. Identical. He knows your rhythm, your fake out, even your favorite feint. So you stop playing. You take a step back. You're using my body, you say, almost conversationally. But not my brain, the real one. I mean, you're a ghost inside a glove. He smiles. It's wrong. Not because it isn't yours, but because it is, and you know you never smiled like that after 1991. You think memory is truth. He says, memory is loyalty with better marketing. He swings now, a clean, horizontal cut, meant to disable rather than kill. You duck under it, strike his thigh, just enough to draw blood. It's red. Warm. That complicates things. A holographic screen flickers to life behind him, casting both of you in cobalt light. You glance at it mid-fight, your old mission logs, streaming by like ghosts in a parade. Reykjavik, Kiwaivi, the optic relay, then Operation Helix. A memory you do remember, but one you've never said out loud. A medical facility, underground, cold like math, doctors without names, needles that weren't aimed at healing. You were told you'd been exposed to a bioweapon, that they had to reinforce your clarity. Later, you realized no one else from your unit ever came back. Historians still debate whether the Cold War's biological experiments were truly abandoned, or simply moved to deeper basements. They find evidence in bursts, old payrolls, redacted journals, sudden disappearances of village populations. But no one talks about the men who survived those experiments, or what they became. You're done playing defense. You shift your weight. Feint high, spin low, and this time you connect. Night 9's leg gives way. He kneels. The blade drops from his hand, clattering like an exclamation point at the end of a sentence no one wants to read. You press your sword to his chest, but you don't strike. Not yet. I need answers. You whisper. You are the answer. He replies. A door hisses behind you. You whirl round, sword up. But it's not more clones, not soldiers, not even guards. It's a child. Maybe 10. Pale, then, hair bust to protocol length, wearing the same iron lion patch you buried decades ago. He stares at you like you're a storybook that just stood up and started yelling. Who are you? You ask, still watching 9. The boy shrugs. They call me Echo. I think it's funny. Do you remember your name? He shakes his head. They said names are just call signs from meat. Your heart squeezes. Not pity, not grief. Something colder. The premonition, night 9 coughs. They made me to replace you, but I failed. Too much original code. Too many. Flaws. He's their correction. Pure archive. You said I was the archive. 9 chuckles, coughing blood now. You're a fragment. Echo is the file. You were just the carrier pigeon, the clean casing. That's why they woke you. You exhale. Hard. Because you know what he's saying is plausible. You felt at the gaps. Moments where you wake not remembering the days before. The instinctive habits. The names you dream of but never say aloud. You look at the boar. Do you want to stay here? Nate 9 wheezes. You'll regret this. He says, they'll come for him. They'll come for you. Let them. You reply dot then. Before he can answer, you deliver a single strike clean, precise, final. He slumps. The hum of the sword fades. Not revenge. Not even mercy. Just deletion. You take Echo's hand. Together. You walk past the artifacts, past your reflection, past all the stories frozen in glass. You emerge into daylight that feels both too bright and too deserved. The snow begins to fall again. You hand the boy your coat. He wraps it tight. You're not him. He says, no. You whisper, but I remember who he was, and for now. That's enough. You descend the mountain with Echo clinging to your side. His small frame moving mechanically, as if unsure what muscles to trust in open space. The bunker door seals itself behind you, the hiss of hydraulics sounding like a tomb locking forever. You don't look back, instead. You guide him down the narrow ridge trail. Snow crunches underfoot, each step less about travel and more about transformation, yours and his. Echo doesn't speak much. He studies, eyes always watching. Calculating. He's absorbing everything. The wind brushing across your face. The uneven weight distribution of your gear. The smell of pine sharpened by cold air. He's not just curious. He's learning. The silence stretches between you both. Until he finally asks, why didn't you kill me? You stop walking. Because you're not the problem. You say, you're the proof. He nods slowly. Though you're not sure he fully understands. Maybe he does. He's 10 years old on the outside, but inside. Who knows what programming or memories they've grafted onto him. The old road appears by late afternoon, mostly buried. Like a scar the mountain tried to forget. There's a burned-out Jeep at the bend still warm. Someone was here. Recently. You duck low. Eyes scanning the tree line. Echo imitates you immediately, mirroring every emotion like a carbon ghost. You signal quiet with 2 fingers and move forward. He doesn't flinch, doesn't ask questions. A weapon without a trigger. You reach the vehicle. Scorched tires, engine block melted into slag. No signs of gunfire, just heat, controlled, surgical. Someone wanted this erased, not exploded. Inside, a single object survives. A fireproof briefcase, locked. Echo touches the case. This was theirs. Whose? You ask. He tilts his head. The ones who made me. Who made you? You open it. Inside, one black folder. No markings. Just a sticker with 2 words. Frost program. You stare at it like it's radioactive. Because it is, the Frost program wasn't supposed to exist. A Cold War relic buried under so many layers of misdirection. It became a myth even inside the intelligence community. It was whispered about in baritone hushes, an idea so unethical, so ungovernable, that even the KGB denied it. Historians still debate whether Frost was a joint project or a stolen one, Soviet biotech crossed with NATO memory architecture. Some say it originated in Iceland. Others insist it began inside a Berlin cinema-turned lab. All agree on one thing. Frost wasn't about building soldiers, it was about preserving wars. You flip the fold open. Inside, a photo. You, strapped to a table, eyes wide open, mouth clamped shut, tubes in your arms, machines round your skull. Acupoints. That's where I came from. No, you whisper, that's where I ended. But he shakes his head. That's when they started making backups of everything, of you. You drop the folder into the snow and let the wind have it. The Cold War didn't freeze, it fractured, and each shard became its own story, its own timeline, waiting to thaw. Suddenly, Echo turns his head sharply toward the woods. You draw your sword, but it's not attackers. It's music. Faint. Tinny. An antique transistor radio nailed to a pine tree, powered by solar cell, broadcasting an endless loop of 1940s jazz. You approach it carefully. There's a sticker on the side. Nightingale. A code name. You twist the dial. Nothing. Then, Echo steps forward. He touches the bass, presses 3 fingers in a sequence you recognize from an old signal book. The music stops. A new sound replaces it. Static. Then a voice, female. Calm. Clip British accent. To the last night. Extraction compromised. Archive breach acknowledged. Night 9 neutralized. Protocol Dandelion in effect. Repeat. Protocol Dandelion is now in effect. You freeze. Dandelion. That was the burn plan. Total erasure of all night assets. You were only supposed to hear it if they'd given up on your usefulness, or worse if you were deemed a threat. Which means they're coming. You say. Echo stares at the radio. They never meant for anyone to get out. Then why leave the message? He shrugs. Maybe someone disagreed. You pry the radio loose. Wires tangle like nerves. You pocket the power cell. Drop the rest. Come on. We're not waiting round to be flowers in someone's dandelion garden. You move fast now. Into thicker woods. South. Toward an old resistance supply trail you remember from your years as Kriya between Hungary and Austria. It's probably collapsed by now. But if even a piece remains, it's your only hope of disappearing again. Echo's legs tire. He doesn't complain. Instead. He hums a strange tune. A lullaby. You stop him. Where did you learn that? He blinks in the chair. When they turned off the pain. Your stomach knots. It's a Soviet melody. You've heard it once before, sung by a woman deep in a Siberian lab. Right before she injected you with something to clear your thoughts. You never learned her name. You wonder if she ever left that lab. By nightfall. You reach the tree line above the valley. Below, a farmhouse. No lights, no satellite dish. Just smoke trailing from a chimney and a laundry line dancing in the wind. To perfect. A trap. Maybe. You don't care. You need warmth, food, rest. So you move. You knock. A woman opens the door. Elderly, polish, by the look of her hands and the way she guards her face with silence. She doesn't ask who you are, just nods and lets you inside. Warm stew, the fire. She never says the word. Later, Echo sleeps on a cot near the stove, cold like a puppy finally allowed to dream. You sit by the fire. The woman places a cup beside you. Birch tea, strong. Then she speaks, softly. I thought all the nights were gone. You glance at her. Most are. Some of us are just unfinished business. She smiles, but her eyes remain heavy. She reaches beneath a loose floorboard and hands you a roll of paper. You unroll it. It's a map. Marked with routes, caches, safe houses, and a single word scrawled in the corner. Sanctuary. You look up. Who are you? She shrugs. I was a gardener once. Now I just help things grow. Then she walks away. Outside. The wind howls. Inside. You memorize the map by firelight. Because dandelion is blooming, and the last night is no longer alone. Morning rise with the sound of wind bending through the woodman eaves like a warning. Not a storm, not yet, but something is coming. Echo stirs near the fire, his movements twitchy, like he's dreaming to fast. You don't wake him, you just watch, because in some cold part of your memory, you know this piece is on borrowed time. You rise and wrap your coat tighter. The map from the gardener woman is tucked inside your belt. It's drawn by hand, each line stitched with precision, like the work of someone who used to trust machines but doesn't anymore. Smart woman. You step outside. The valley is pale gold under the morning sky. No contrails, no drones. Just frost melting on the woodpile and the distant bark of crows discussing local gossip. You're halfway through your perimeter sweep when you spot it. A dot far off on the ridgeline, standing still. You kneel behind a stump, lift a pair of battered binoculars. It's a man. Long coat, no visible weapon, but a familiar posture. Ex-military. Watching, not approaching. Another night. Doubtful. To still. Then it hits you. He's not there for you. He's there to see who comes out of the house. You exhale and duck low, circling back through the trees. You return to find Echo awake, already dressed, folding the blanket with military precision. He's watching. Isn't he? The boy asks. You nod. How do you know? I dreamed it. He says. Of course he did. You move fast. The old woman is already preparing food. You stop her gently. Do you have a radio? She shakes her head. No, but you want this. She hands you a compass, not digital. Heavy, rusted, but still true. Head west. She says, through the orchard. Then up. There's a path. You nod. You don't say goodbye. People like her deserve better than farewells. They deserve to be forgotten by the people who hunt you. You and Echo slip into the orchard. Shadows among apple skeletons. By noon. You reach the old ski lift have buried. Long dead. Cables tangled like the nerves of a dying titan. But it gives you altitude. Sightline. You scan the ridge. The man is gone. But something worse is there now. Smoke. Small. Controlled plumes. Signal fires. 3 of them. You kneel. They're bracketing us. You whisper. Echo nods. Dandelion. You freeze. How do you know that wood? He looks up. They said it in the dark, when the lights went off. When they thought I was asleep. Your gut tightens. Dandelion protocol wasn't a single kill order. It was an unfolding system. A network of autonomous operatives activated simultaneously to erase evidence, neutralize assets, and rewrite the surviving narrative. It wasn't a response plan. It was a reboot. You move fast. The map leads you through the shadow of a dead ski resort, Soviet-era design. All brutalism and bad feng shui. Concrete balconies like empty bird nests. You remember when it was full. Guards, diplomats, a Turkish violinist who once smuggled a defector under his cello. All ghosts now, but not empty. As you pass the front lobby. As sound stops, you music. Again. This time it's Chopin, played slowly, off key. You peer inside. A man sits at the grand piano. White hair, civilian clothes, but his shoes are regulation issue. He doesn't look up. Thought you'd come through here. He says, most predictable route, which means you almost didn't take it. You step inside, sword sheathed but ready. Who are you? He finishes the piece badly and turns. I used to be Knight 2. Before the reorg, before the doctrine changed. You raise an eyebrow. There was never a Knight 2. You say, he smiles. Exactly. He motions to a chair. You don't sit. He shrugs. Suit yourself. I'm not here to kill you. I'm just here to observe the failure. What failure? He taps his temple. Frost. Echo. All of it. We weren't designed for legacy. We were designed for repeatability. You blare. Then, why are you still alive? He chuckles. I broke early. I told them I'd sew better on the outside, and they bought it. Why talk to me now? He stands, walks over to the window, points at the smoke columns. They're not here for you. He says, they're here to collect echo. You're just residue. You grip your hilt. He raises a hand. Don't. I'm not worth the calories. He hands you a key. To what? Cable car. Backridge. Gets you into Slovakia unnoticed. For now. You hesitate. What's the catch? He shrugs. Just make sure the boy doesn't turn into us. Then he sits back down and starts another song. This one even worse than the first. You leave. You and Echo reach the cable car station by dusk. Dotted groans awake, a ghost refusing to stay dead. The ride is slow, creaking, but it works. Dot below. Forest. Border. Beyond that, the city of Coxus. A friend. Maybe a way forward. Midway through the ride, Echo turns to you. Why do you think they made me? You sigh. Because they were afraid of forgetting what they'd done. He nods. Then. Do you think I'm broken? You stare out at the trees. No. You say, but if they find you, they'll break you on purpose. He doesn't speak again for the rest of the ride. When the car finally halts, the valley ahead is quiet, peaceful. But behind you, the sky is burning orange. The nights are awakening. And war has remembered your name. You reach the safe house in Coxus just after midnight. It's a post-war dentist's office, abandoned since the early 2000s. The sign out front still reads Besboles Nestoros Livosum. Painless care. Ironic, you've never known such a thing. The door opens with a soft click. No traps. No alarms. Just dust. The kind that knows your name. Echo slides in behind you, flashlight in hand, sweeping the corner like he's done this before. Probably because he has. Maybe not here, but in places like this. Places meant to be forgotten. Downstairs, the basement still hums with faint power. You throw the breakers, fluorescents buzz awake. One flickers a Morse code rhythm that could drive a sane man mad. You find a breaker and fix it. Sometimes survival is just about knowing which wire hums too loud. The old rotary phone on the wall isn't for calls, it's a key. You dial 737 and wait. A panel in the wall unlocks. Metal. Cooled. Inside. Water. Rations. Medkits. For grenades you pray you won't need. And a book. A real book. Sun Tzu. Annotated in Czech. You hand it to Echo. Homework. You nod. Life's syllabus is brutal. He flips through it. Did you read this? Memorized it. Twice. He nods. Impressed. That, or calculating how quickly he can do the same. You rest for 2 days. Not because it's safe, but because exhaustion has teeth and you're bleeding resolve. You sleep with one eye open. Echo does not. His sleep is deep, surgical, dreamless. You envy that and fear it. A clean mind is either too young or recently wiped. On the 3rd day, it rains. You step outside, hood up. Sword disguised in a cello case slung over your back. It's not subtle. But then again, subtlety is for agents. You're past that. You go to a cafe. The barista doesn't ask your name, just hands you a cup. It's marked with the old night sigil scratched under the glaze, barely visible. You drink and wait. At 10:47. She sits across from you, hair dyed red, eyes tired, fingers twitching like she hasn't put down a weapon in years. Night 6, she says. You nod. Night 4, she smirks. You look terrible. You're not my mother. Thank God. She slides a photo across the table, blurry. Zoomed in from a satellite drone. It's you and Echo on the ski lift. Burn notice is global now. She says Frost went public last week. Someone leaked the files. Your mouth goes dry. Who? No one knows. But the leak's dirty. Redacted in all the wrong places. Makes you look like a rogue biotech asset gone fell. Echo's labeled an unstable bioweapon. Convenient. She leans forward. They're coming for him. Every nation, every doctrine. Even the ones that used to deny he existed. You finish your coffee. What's left? She hesitates. Then, there's one place. But it's not a sanctuary. It's a test. You raise an eyebrow. The monastery. High Tatras, old Night-Rand base. Scrubbed off all the maps after 1982. Sealed under Project Ivory. I thought that was a myth. She laughs. Everything's a myth until the bullets start. You stand. What do I owe you? She grins. A clean death someday. You leave a gold coin on the table. Real. Not crypto. She pockets it without looking. You return to Echo. He's waiting by the broken dental chair, polishing the blade of your backup weapon. You found a plan. He asks, just a staircase. You reply. He nods. Let's climb. The journey to the monastery takes for days. Not because of distance, but because of the resistance. Checkpoint after checkpoint. Drones that sniff not for explosives, but for data. They fly low, lazy. Almost bored. You get creative. You make yourself forgettable. You cut your hair. Teach Echo how to walk with a limp. How to blink just slowly enough to look slow-witted. He hates it. But he learns on the second night. You find a safe house inside a burned-down church. Inside. The walls are covered with names. Night names. Some real. Some. Maybe decoys. It's a memorial. Or a warning. Echo asks. Were these your friends? No. You say they were attempts. He touches one name gently, then looks at you. Do you think I'm someone's attempt? You hesitate. Then answer slowly. No, you're someone's mistake. But mistakes can be valuable. He accepts that because he has to by dawn on the 5th day. You reach the base of the High Tatras. The monastery looms above, half collapsed, half swallowed by ice and fog. No visible power, no gods. But you know better. This place was once the blackest of black labs. You circle round, looking for an access hatch. Not the front gate, that would be suicide. You find it behind a waterfall, half concealed by roots and frost. You open the hatch. It breathes warmer. Inside. Darkness. Then automated lights that blink to life in sequence. They remember you, or at least your gate. You step inside. Echo follows. The door seals. A voice booms overhead, calm. Sexless, accented. Welcome back. Night Zero. You flinch. Night Zero wasn't a rank. It was a warning. System. You say aloud. How long since last activation? 2,632 days. 7 years, give or take. Status of Project Ivory. Suspended. Awaiting authentication. You hesitate. Then say it. Protocol babble. The lights go red. Then green. Then the door to the inner sanctum hisses open inside. Cold labs. Metal beds. Memory tanks. Holotapes fluttering like broken butterflies. Echo stops. This is where they broke people. He whispers, you nod, and it's where we find out why. You move to the core terminal. The interface is archaic, tactile, real. You log in. Files unspool. You scan entry after entry. Frost wasn't about ending the Cold War. It was about ensuring it could be restarted at any time. Every night, every echo, every ghost soldier, they were just switches. Backup files in human skin. Echo leans over your shoulder. There's one labeled contingency. Echo Prime. You open it. Inside. A video. depth of you, not now you. Younger, eyes sharper, voice colder. If this file plays, the protocol has failed. Echo Prime has learned empathy. Terminate and replace. You stare at the boy beside you. He's watching too. I don't want to be replaced. He whispers. You shut the terminal down. You won't be. Because the last night has made a decision. You're no longer just surviving the Cold War. You're ending it for good. The morning mist wraps around the monastery's broken spires like a secret. You feel the weight of history pressing down. Colder than the ice clinging to the windows. Echo watches you closely. His youthful eyes flickering between hope and fear. He's beginning to understand that this place isn't just a relic, it's a crucible. You descend into the bowels of the facility, where the hum of old machines pulses faintly beneath the silence. The air smells of antiseptic and rust. A paradox of sterile decay. Echo runs his fingers along the cracked panels of consoles, as if trying to awaken memories hidden in their circuits. You come upon a room lined with cryogenic pods, long emptied but not forgotten. Their frosted glass surfaces reflect your own ghostly image back at you. One pod remains sealed, labeled Project Frost Prime. Historians still debate whether Project Frost was ever truly terminated or simply went dormant, waiting to be reawakened like a sleeping beast. The files you found hint at a plan far darker than you imagined: genetic enhancements, psychological conditioning, and an AI interface designed to meld with human consciousness. Echo's voice breaks your reverie. Why did they want to turn me into this? What were they hoping to create? You sigh, the weight of your own past settling heavy on your shoulders. Control. Perfection. A soldier who could outthink war itself. But perfection is a myth, and control. A cruel joke. Suddenly, the pod's control panel flickers to life. A holographic image materializes a woman's face. Calm but resolute. Echo Prime. She intones. You have been activated for your final test. Echo steps back, startled. You steady him, whispering. This is the moment they warned us about. The hologram explains that the test will assess Echo's ability to resist the program's control, to retain his humanity against the machine's cold logic. As the test begins, the room's temperature drops further. The lights dim and flicker, shadows dancing like specters. You watch as Echo's mind is flooded with images: battlefields, loved ones lost, commands given and disobeyed. He falters, his body trembling under the strain. You reach out, gripping his shoulder. Remember who you are. Echo's eyes snap open, shining with fierce determination. I'm not a weapon, he says. I'm alive. The hologram flickers, its expression unreadable. Then, unexpectedly, it smiles, a gesture almost human. Congratulations, Echo Prime. You have passed. But the victory is bittersweet. Outside, the monastery trembles as automated defenses awaken. Recognizing the breach, you and Echo race through corridors, dodging turrets and collapsing ceilings. The past is trying to bury you, but you won't be silenced. Emerging into the cold dawn, you realize that survival isn't just about escaping, it's about rewriting the story. The last night and his Echo stand together, ready to face whatever comes next. The cold air hits you like a slap when you burst from the monastery's shattered doors. Snowflakes fall lazily, betraying the chaos inside. The automated defenses still howl in the distance, metal beasts awakening after years of sleep. You don't look back. Echo stumbles beside you, breath fogging in the crisp mountain air. You pull him close, feeling the boy's heartbeat pounding like a drum against your ribs, a reminder he's more than just an asset. You start down the mountain path, every step a battle against fatigue and doubt. Somewhere below, you hear the faint murmur of a radio frequency, static laced with fragmented voices. The Cold War's ghosts are still whispering as you make camp in the shadow of a pine grove. Echo asks the question you've been avoiding. Why do they want me so badly? You stare into the fire, flames flickering like memories. Because you're the future they feared, you say softly, a reminder that humanity can't be programmed. Echo pokes at the embers, sending sparks into the night. Historians still debate whether the Cold War ever truly ended, or if it just changed shapes. Like some monstrous hydra, you nod, and you echo. At its last round, you pull your coat tighter, eyes scanning the horizon. Somewhere out there, the nights are regrouping silent predators in a new kind of battlefield. But tonight, beneath the ancient stars, you allow yourself a moment's peace. Tomorrow, the war resumes. But for now, you are simply two souls lost in a vast, cold world. Dawn breaks with a muted grey light filtering through heavy clouds. You wake to Echo already gone. Footprints pressed into the frost leading toward the nearby village. The boy's growing restlessness unsettles you, but you follow silently. Sometimes the last night must learn patience. The village is a skeleton of post-Soviet decay, buildings scarred by time and neglect, shops shuttered, their windows cracked like forgotten dreams. Yet, in the cracked concrete, life persists. An old woman tends a stubborn garden, defying winter's grip. A dog barks somewhere, lone sentinel. You find Echo watching a group of children playing with makeshift toys, wooden tops, and rag dolls. Their laughter is fragile, yet fierce. Why do they keep playing? Echo asks. You smile softly. Because hope doesn't die. Even in the coldest winters, you move through the village square, passing graffiti layered with history hammer and sickle, NATO insignia, and strange symbols you don't recognize. It's a mosaic of conflict and coexistence. Historians still debate whether these villages were forgotten battlegrounds or quiet resistance hubs during the Cold War's darkest days. A sudden noise draws your attention, a crackling voice over a hidden radio. You catch fragments. Echo, critical asset, extraction, imminent. You exchange a glance with Echo. The net tightens. You slip into the shadows, melting into the cold streets like ghosts. The village holds secrets, old tunnels beneath a collapsed factory remnant of Cold War industry repurposed for escape. You lead Echo underground, heart pounding as the air cools and darkness thickens. Here, in these forgotten veins, you feel the weight of history like a living thing. Do you think we'll ever be free? Echo whispers. You pause, the answer elusive. Maybe freedom is just another word for survival. You both press onward, deeper into the earth, leaving the fragile world of the surface behind. Outside, the war continues its silent drumbeat. But down here, in the cold dark, you find a moment's shelter. The tunnels stretch like veins beneath the frozen earth. Damp and echoing with your footsteps, the air tastes stale, thick with the memories of those who once ran these paths, soldiers, spies, refugees, all chasing survival in the Cold War shadow. You lead Echo through the labyrinth, every turn a calculated risk. The walls are scrolled with faded symbols and coded messages, a secret language for those who dared to resist. You pause at a rusted door marked with a simple emblem, a white dove clutching a broken sword, resistance. You whisper. Echo traces the symbol with his finger, eyes wide. Historians still debate whether these resistance cells were coordinated networks or scattered acts of defiance, each as crucial as a drop of blood. Inside the chamber, you find remnants of old radio equipment, maps dotted with pins, and hastily scrawled plans. It smells of dust and determination. You tune the radio, finger steady despite the chill, static crackles. Then a voice, a woman's, urgent and low. Echo Prime, if you're hearing this, you are not alone. The night's legacy lives. Trust no one but your instincts. The message cuts out. Leaving a haunting silence. Echo clenches his fists. So there are others. You nod slowly. Not many, but enough to make a difference. You scan the maps, plotting a path that could lead to allies or ambush. The Cold War was never just a battle of nations, it was a war of shadows, where trust was the most dangerous currency. You settle in for a long night, knowing the tunnels won't keep you safe forever. Outside, the frost creeps closer, and the world waits. But down here, in the cold dark, you find a spark of hope. The first light of dawn filters through a narrow grate, casting long shadows on the damp stone walls. You awaken to Echo staring at the radio, eyes reflecting the fragile hope in the message. It lingers, a ghost of resistance, and maybe a lifeline. You pack your gear silently. There's no time for speeches or promises, only the cold reality of movement. The tunnels finally spit you up near a derelict train station, the iron rails twisted by frost and neglect. The landscape round is a harsh mosaic of cracked pavement, skeletal trees, and abandoned vehicles, frozen mid-rush in a time long past. You keep low, muscles tensed like a cat ready to pounce. Echo follows, quieter than usual, the weight of the unknown pressing on his young shoulders as you scout the area. You notice an old billboard faded to obscurity, the slogan barely legible. Peace is possible. A cruel joke, perhaps, or a relic of genuine hope. Historians still debate whether the Cold War's true battles were fought in diplomacy chambers or in silent acts like these, abandoned towns caught in the crossfire of ideologies. Suddenly, a flicker of movement catches your eye, figures in Congo, rifles slung, scanning the area. Your gut tightens. They're too organized to be local militia, too well armed for scavengers. You pull Echo into the shadow of a crumbling wall. They're hunting for us. You whisper, and they've got orders. Echo's jaw tightens. We fight. No. You say, we disappear. You find an old maintenance tunnel leading beneath the station. Narrow, claustrophobic. But your best chance, inside. The air is stale, thick with the scent of oil and rust. You move carefully. Echoing footsteps behind you growing louder. The chase is on. You pause at a junction, heart hammering. Behind you, the sounds close in a predator's footsteps. Ahead, a faint glow. Echo grips your arm. This way. You follow the dim light to a hatch leading outside. You burst through into a snow-covered field, the wind whipping round you like a living thing. The hunters pause at the tunnel's mouth, frustrated but patient. You and Echo melt into the wilderness. Shadows among shadows, the last night and his echo against the world. The Cold War never promised mercy. But tonight, survival is its own victory. The biting wind slices through your coat as you and Echo navigate the frozen forest. Each crunch of snow a fragile heartbeat in the vast silence. Branches scrape against your face, and the scent of pine mingles with the sharp tang of cold air. You move carefully, every sense stretched thin. You find a shallow cave, hidden beneath an outcropping of granite, the entrance masked by frost and fallen branches. It's not much, but shelter beats exposure inside. Echo curls up against the cold stone. Eyes scanning the darkness, you light a small fire. Its warmth a fragile defiance against the relentless chill. You pull out a worn notebook, pages filled with hastily scribbled notes, locations, names, plans, remnants of a resistance long thought dead. Remember the Berlin Tunnel? You ask Echo softly, referring to a Cold War engineering marvel that once connected east and west. A secret artery beneath the city. He nods, eyes bright despite exhaustion. Historians still debate whether the Berlin Tunnel was a feat of espionage genius or a reckless gamble that almost sparked global disaster. You flip through the pages, tracing a route that might lead you to others like you, survivors of a war nobody admits is over. Outside, the wind howls, carrying distant echoes of artillery and sirens long silent inside the cave. You close your eyes, heart steadying. You're the last night surviving the Cold War. Tomorrow, the fight continues. Night deepens, and the cave shadows grow long and restless. Echo sleeps fitfully, murmuring fragments of old propaganda slogans mixed with his dreams' remnants of a world wired into his very DNA. You watch him, a living testament to a history written again and again. Outside, the cold presses in relentlessly. You think of the Cuban Missile Crisis, that raise-rage moment when the world teetered on the brink of nuclear annihilation. The standoff was a masterclass in brinkmanship. With the world holding its breath as leaders played their deadly game of chicken, historians still debate whether the crisis was genuinely averted by diplomacy or sheer luck inside the cave. You unwrap a stale piece of bread, comfort food for hardened survivors. Echo wakes, eyes alert. Did we just dodge extinction? He asks, voice rough. You shrug, knowing the truth is messier. Maybe we just postponed it. You say, or learn to survive in the cracks. You pull out a small, battered radio, tuning it to a low-frequency channel. Static hisses, then a voice faint. Almost a whisper, Echo Prime. You are not alone. The signal cuts out abruptly. You exchange a glance with Echo. The war is hunting you. But somewhere, in the tangled shadows, others still fight. You lay back against the cold rock, the fire flickering low. Outside, the world waits, fragile and unpredictable. Inside, you find a moment's peace, a fragile sanctuary in the endless night. You wait till the faint glow of dawn filtering through the cave's narrow mouth, painting the frost in soft golds and blues. Echo is already stirring, rubbing the sleep from his eyes like a child reluctant to leave a warm bed. You feel the weight of the cold world pressing down again. But here, for a few precious moments, there's quiet, packing up. You step outside, the icy ground crunching beneath your boots. The landscape is an endless stretch of white, broken only by the skeletal remains of old war machinery half buried in snowdrifts, rusting reminders that even metal can't escape time's slow decay. You recall the Helsinki Accords, a rare moment of hope in the Cold War, where East and West tentatively promised peaceful coexistence. Yet beneath the hopeful rhetoric, the espionage never ceased, and distrust remained a constant shadow. Historians still debate whether the Accords were a genuine step toward peace or merely a strategic pause. You and Echo navigate through the frozen wasteland toward a distant signal, a flicker on your radio that might be salvation or a trap. The wind picks up, biting through your layers. Echo stumbles but catches himself, eyes shining with quiet resolve. Why keep fighting? He asks, voice barely more than a breath. You look at him, the last knight facing an uncertain dawn. Because sometimes surviving is the greatest rebellion of all. You press forward, footsteps swallowed by the endless snow, to figures defying a world that wants them forgotten. You trudge through the snow, each step sinking deeper into the cold white blanket covering the land. Echo's breath forms quicksilver clouds in the air, and the distant sound of a raven's call slices through the silence like a reminder of the loneliness you both carry. Ahead, a ruined communications tower looms, its skeletal frame glowing at the sky like a dying sentinel. You know this is where your radio signals have been bouncing from a faint heartbeat in the wilderness. As you approach, you find a small campfire flickering beside the ruins. A lone figure emerges from the shadows, an older man with eyes that have seen too much and lips pressed tight with determination. Echo Prime? He asks, voice rough like gravel. You nod cautiously. This is the Resistance's last beacon. Historians still debate whether these pockets of resistance were remnants of government operatives or ragtag survivors united by desperation. The man introduces himself as Victor, a former intelligence officer turned renegade. He speaks of a plan, a final strike to disrupt the Cold War's lingering claws, to pull the world back from the brink. Echo listens, hope sparking in his gaze. But you know better than to trust hope blindly. The Cold War is a long game, played in shadows and silence. Still, tonight, round this dying fire, You allow yourself to believe in something more than survival. Tomorrow, the battle continues, but for now, there's warmth in the cold. You sit by the fire, the flames flickering shadows across Victor's weathered face. His stories unfold tales of secret operations, betrayals, and coded messages sent in plain sight. The Cold War was not just a clash of armies, but a war waged in whispers and half-truths. Echo listens intently, absorbing the weight of these hidden histories. You notice his gaze harden, the innocence of youth peeling away like old paint. Victor speaks of Operation Ryan, the Soviet intelligence program designed to detect a surprise nuclear attack. It's a story laced with paranoia, where even the smallest misstep could ignite global catastrophe. Historians still debate whether Operation Hawaiian's intensity nearly triggered World War III or if it was a necessary precaution in a dangerous game. You think about the fragile balance you're trying to maintain between Echo's humanity and the cold machinery that haunts him. The fire sputters as a cold wind rises. Victor pulls a tattered map from his coat, marking locations where resistance cells might still exist. You're not alone, he says gravely. But time is running out, you nod, understanding the weight of his words. Echo reaches out, gripping your arm. We keep fighting, don't we? You smile, the corner of your mouth lifting despite the bleakness. Until the last night falls or the war ends. Outside, the night deepens, stars blinking like distant promises. Inside, you find resolve. The dawn cracks slowly over the horizon, painting the snow in pale gold. You rise, muscles aching but resolve unbroken. Victor hands you a small package maps, encrypted notes, and a cache of old but reliable weapons. This is no fairy tale. This is survival dressed in the scraps of a dying world. Echo's eyes flicker with new fire, the flicker of a spark long buried. You wonder if he understands what it means to carry this burden, to be the last echo of a war that never truly ended. You think back to the infamous U-2 incident. Francis Gary Powers shot down over Soviet skies, a single plane that rattled the fragile diplomatic table. Historians still debate whether Powers was a spy, a scapegoat, or just a pawn in a bigger game. You feel the weight of those same invisible games pressing down as you move through the frozen landscape. Every shadow a potential enemy. You and Echo slip through the ruins of an abandoned town. Eyes sharp, breath steady. Survival isn't just about avoiding death, it's about holding onto humanity when the world demands you become something else. Victor's words echo in your mind. Fight smart. Fight together. Tonight. The last night and his charge move forward not just to survive, but to remind the world that even in the coldest war, warmth can still be found. You and Echo make camp beside a frozen river, the ice cracking beneath the weight of time and winter. The silence here is profound, almost sacred, a stark contrast to the chaos etched into the world above. You pull from your pack a faded photograph of a battlefield long ago. Soldiers in rusted armor, faces hard with resolve. The last knight was never just a warrior. He was a symbol, a guardian of fading ideals. Echo traces the lines of the photo with a gloved finger, eyes filled with questions you can't yet answer. You recall the Prague Spring, the fleeting moment in 1968, when a nation dared to dream of freedom before tanks crushed it with cold steel and colder hearts. Historians still debate whether the Prague Spring was a genuine push for reform or a mere ripple in the Cold War's vast ocean. You feel the weight of history's relentless tide pulling at your own story. The river's edge is slick, and you pause, watching the water flow beneath the ice, sometimes hidden, sometimes exposed, much like the truths you chase. Echo breaks the silence. Do you think history remembers the lost? You stare into the frozen depths. Sometimes it forgets, but it always waits for someone brave enough to remind it. The night deepens, cold and endless. Yet, here, beside the frozen river, you find a flicker of something that feels like hope. The frost bites deeper as you press onward. The landscape a desolate expanse of ice and shadow. Your breath curls like smoke, a fleeting mark in the frozen air. Echo moves silently beside you, a shadow tethered to your every step. You come across a ruined factory, its skeletal frame reaching toward the sky like a forgotten monument. Inside, rusted machinery creaks in the wind, whispering secrets of industrial might turned to decay. You remember the Ural Mountains factories, heart of Soviet industry and resilience during the Cold War. The massive output was both a symbol of strength and a target, locked in a silent duel with Western powers. Historians still debate whether this industrial might prolonged the Cold War or hastened its decline. You find a crumpled leaflet amid the rubble, faded words promising peace through strength. It feels like a cruel joke now. Echo picks it up. I scanning the faded text. Why do they keep repeating the same lies? You smile wryly. Because sometimes the world needs to hear them to forget the truth. You settle in the factory's shadow, the cold seeping into your bones, but your spirit refusing to break. Tonight, the factory skeleton groans under the weight of the icy wind, and you awake to Echo's quiet breathing beside you. Outside, the world is a frozen wasteland, but inside, a fragile warmth holds. You pull from your pack a small, cracked compass, an artifact of guidance in both geography and life. It's a reminder that even the lost can find direction. You think of the Korean War, a brutal proxy conflict that froze the peninsula into two ideologically opposed halves, a living scar of the Cold War. Historians still debate whether the war was an inevitable clash or a tragic misstep that set the tone for decades of tension. Echo fingers the compass needle, watching it twitch uncertainly. Which way do we go? He asks softly. You look north, where the horizon blurs into icy mist. Forward, you say. The future is uncertain, but as the last night, hesitation isn't an option. You step outside into the biting cold, the compass clutched tightly in your hand, and the silent promise of a new dawn somewhere beyond the horizon. The landscape shifts as you trek through dense pine forests, branches heavy with snow that muffles your footsteps. The scent of pine resin mingles with the cold air, a reminder that even in desolation, life persists. You stumble upon a hidden bunker, half buried beneath the earth, its steel door rusted but stubbornly closed. The Cold War was littered with these bunkers, havens, and prisons, depending on who held the keys. Historians still debate whether these bunkers were a necessary precaution or a manifestation of paranoia that consumed both sides. You pry the door open, the hinges groaning like an old man reluctant to rise. Inside, the stale air carries the scent of long-forgotten secrets. Maps, ration tins, and faded photographs lay scattered fragments of lives frozen in time. Echo picks up a cracked photograph of a family, smiles frozen beneath a shadow of conflict. Were they like us? He asks quietly. You nod, feeling the weight of their silent stories. The Cold War wasn't just global politics, it was personal. Every face a silent casualty. You close the door behind you, the cold pressing in once more, and you continue to solitary figures navigating the last shadows of a world gone quiet. The bunker's silence lingers as you step back into the snow, the cold air biting anew. You feel the gravity of forgotten lives round you, echoes of hope, fear, and resilience tangled in the frost ahead. A faded mural on a crumbling wall catches your eye, two hands clasped in a handshake, painted decades ago when détente seemed possible, the fragile bridge across ideological chasms. You think of the SALT treaties, the strategic arms limitation talks, where titans negotiated limits in a nuclear standoff that threatened all existence. Historians still debate whether SALT was a genuine step toward peace or a paper shield masking an arms race that never truly stopped. Echo reaches out, tracing the mural's cracked lines. Did they really want peace? You shrug, knowing history's answers are often as fractured as the walls round you. Sometimes peace was a dream, other times is strategy. You press onward. The weight of the Cold War pressing on your shoulders like the winter sky. But even in this frozen silence, the faint pulse of defiance beats on. You are the last night, and this war, however cold, is not yet over. The cold night wraps round you like a shroud as you traverse the empty highway, cracked and overgrown with frostbitten weeds. The road ahead disappears into the mist. An uncertain path in a world where certainty died decades ago. You find a broken-down car, its engine long silent, but its presence a reminder of mobility. Freedom luxuries now just memories. You think about the Berlin Wall, that grim barrier that sliced a city and a world in two. Its fall was a thunderclap of hope, yet the wounds beneath remained raw. Historians still debate whether the wall's collapse marked the end of the Cold War or merely a change in disguise. You climb inside the car, the cracked leather cold and stiff, and look at Echo. Sometimes you say, walls fall, but the cold stays. Echo nods, eyes distant but fierce. You start walking again, the highway stretching before you like an unanswered question. The Cold War isn't just history. It's a landscape of ghosts and memories you carry with every step. And as the last night, your journey is far from over. The air is sharp, and the sky brews with the fading light of dusk as you and Echo climb the ridge overlooking a once bustling Soviet missile silo, now silent and overgrown. The hulking concrete structure stares blankly, a relic of threats that once loomed large enough to freeze the world in place. You remember the Able Archer exercise, that nerve-wracking NATO drill that nearly triggered a Soviet launch in 1983, a moment when misunderstandings nearly detonated real war. Historians still debate whether Able Archer was just a routine exercise or the closest the Cold War ever came to real ignition. Standing there, you feel the weight of these near catastrophes, how fragile peace can be when humanity balances on the edge of a blade. Echo's eyes flicker as he looks over the barren landscape. Did they ever stop fearing? You shake your head. Fear was the weapon and the wound. The missile silo's silent presence humbles you, a testament to the Cold War's long, frozen shadow. You turn to Echo and whisper, "The war is over only when we forget to fight it." The wind whistles through the trees as darkness settles, a blanket over a world still waiting for dawn. You descend from the ridge, boots crunching through brittle leaves and frost, the moonlight casting pale shadows that stretch like ghosts across the frozen ground. Echo's breath is steady, but you sense the weight of what lies ahead pressing on him like the cold itself. You come upon a small village, abandoned yet hauntingly preserved, as if time held its breath and forgot to move forward. The skeletal remains of a playground swing sway in the icy wind, a silent reminder that life once thrived here amid the looming dread of global conflict. You think of the U-2 incident's aftermath and the deepening mistrust that froze diplomacy for years, fracturing any hope of genuine connection. Historians still debate whether that single spy plane's fall sealed the Cold War's fate or merely exposed what was already breaking beneath the surface. Echo touches the swing gently. The metal cold but familiar. "Do you think peace was ever real?" he asks softly. You kneel beside him, eyes reflecting the pale moonlight. "Peace is complicated," you say, voice low. "Sometimes it's just the absence of war. And sometimes it's a long, quiet battle we never stop fighting." You stand. The village behind you a ghost of a time that shaped everything you are. And in this frozen night, the last night moves forward not into peace, but into the stillness after the storm. The cold settles deep into your bones as you and Echo navigate a narrow mountain pass. The wind howling like distant echoes of forgotten battles. The landscape is jagged, unforgiving, an apt metaphor for the fractured world you carry within. You pause beside an old radio tower, its rusted antennas reaching skyward as if desperate to reconnect with a world that has long since moved on. It reminds you of the Moscow-Washington hotline established to prevent accidental war. a fragile lifeline between two titans teetering on the edge. Historians still debate whether the hotline truly eased tensions or simply masked the relentless undercurrent of suspicion. You fiddle with your radio, tuning it through static, searching for a signal sign that you're not alone in this frozen wilderness. Echo sits beside you, fingers cold but steady on the radio's one dials. "Do you think anyone's listening?" he asks. You smile faintly. Even if they aren't, sometimes you have to speak into the silence anyway. The wind carries your words into the night. A whisper against the vast, cold darkness dot, and as the stars blink overhead, you realize the last night's journey isn't just survival, it's a conversation with history itself. The trail winds upward as dusk fades into a velvet sky, stars shimmering faintly like distant promises. You and Echo climb toward an old observatory perched on a craggy hill. Its dome cracked, but still proud against the night. The Cold War wasn't just fought on Earth. It reached into the cosmos. You think of the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis, when the world held its breath, eyes fixed on the skies, waiting for missiles that could turn the planet into ash. Historians still debate whether sheer luck or skilled diplomacy averted nuclear disaster in those tense days. Inside the observatory, dust motes dance in the beam of your flashlight. Ghosts of stargazers passed. The silence is thick, almost reverent. Echo peers through a cracked telescope, the glass scratched but still offering a glimpse of the heavens. "Do you think the stars remember?" he asks softly. You chuckle, the sound low and warm in the cold air. Maybe. Or maybe they just watch, indifferent to human folly. You rest a hand on his shoulder, the weight a grounding force in the endless night. Out here, the last knight and his apprentice share a moment of fragile piece of breath held between history's harsh lessons and the uncertain dawn ahead. The morning light filters weakly through the grey clouds as you and Echo descend from the observatory. Footsteps slow and deliberate. The Cold War's shadows stretch long behind you. But ahead, somewhere beyond the horizon, there's a faint, trembling light. You remember the fall of the Berlin Wall, that shattering moment when iron fists gave way to hopeful hands. It marked an end. Yes, but also a beginning fraught with new uncertainties. Historians still debate whether the Cold War truly ended or simply transformed into a different kind of struggle. You glance at Echo, his eyes reflecting the fragile dawn. "We made it this far," you whisper. He nods, voice barely audible. "What now?" You smile gently. "Now, we keep walking. Because the last night's journey isn't about victory, it's about endurance, together." You step forward, the cold receding not with grand gestures but with quiet persistence. The world is tired, bruised, but still alive. And in the soft whisper of the morning wind, you find solace, because sometimes survival itself is the bravest act. You close your eyes, the image fading gently. A lullaby of resilience and hope. The Cold War was a tapestry woven with fear, courage, and the relentless human spirit struggling against the chill of division. Through frozen wastelands and shattered cities, the last knight and his companion remind us that even in the bleakest times, endurance and hope endure. History may judge the outcomes, debate the motives, and question the moments that could have tipped the scales. But the story of survival of humanity holding on is the one that whispers softly into the night. So, as you close your eyes tonight, let the quiet courage of those who lived in the shadows soothe you. The wall may have left its scars, but it also left a legacy, the unyielding will to carry on, to find warmth even in the coldest wars.